Okay, my friends, I have a scathing report on peer review. It is broken. It was a cornerstone of modern science. Totally broken. And the reason is very, very disturbing, as you will hear now. Alright, here's the issue. If a scientist did a scientific research paper or proves God or anything about the God story or the flood or any of that, would it ever get published? I can guarantee you no. Alright, now anybody that knows me knows this is how this started. I discovered giants on my property. Nobody can take them away from me. They're on my property and they still are here now because the damn things are so big I can't possibly move them. That is a fingernail. A fingernail from a fingertip from a giant human. And yes, it's human because I had a DNA tested. And from front to back, it's almost 3 feet long. This is the pad that goes right on the back of the fingertip. These are the blood supplies. And I broke off a piece here that actually still has the fingerprints on it. And then I went down inside and got blood out of an artery. You know, there's tons of blood in fingers, but you can't get it from the surface. See this? When I talk about tons, they are saturated with blood. Now, the fingertip was there. I broke off a piece on the edge and I went down inside and took some really raw red blood out. And this is the fingerprints that came off of that fingernail when I broke it off the side. Now the fingerprints have the sweat pores and everything still in it. This is literally about this thick, and it just came right off just like you unglued it, and it just snapped right off like it was Velcroed. These are the fingerprint ridges, just like your fingerprint ridges. They're the same size as my thumb, the width. It's huge, it's gigantic, and it was DNA tested, and I have more. This was just one of them. I have tons of them. This is a lung that came out of the same hole, and it's the same size as us, and I mean it is flawless. And they are saturated with blood. Lungs they're just saturated with blood. that's blood runs through them and the air goes in there and that's how you breathe. Now this one here had all of this rubbery pleura. That's the coating that coats your lung. It's a membrane and a rubber bag, and that is gone from this one all the way down into the holes where you see the little alveoli holes here. That's all supposed to be air pockets, and this had them. They filled in with silicates. In the mud fossil conditions, I've done a deep research on this. I understand it intimately. And I can go in and get blood out of rocks very, very easily. Very easily. And this also was DNA tested, and that was CAT scanned, and it's human. You see bones like this here? That's a bone head. Now it's broken here. Down inside, it's usually basalts, but the coating around here is the fascia, the membrane. That's blood coming out of a artery. It comes out of arteries. The veins don't have the veins seal off. Now this is when I pulled the scab off the edge to see the fibrin, which is the clotting factor underneath, and then underneath that, where's the 2 holes. This one here is the red one. You see the red? That's where your artery comes out. This one is the black. You see the blackish stuff? That's where your vein comes back up to your heart to get re-established. Now, in addition to these, I also had a giant hand. And the fingers and knuckles and all kinds of, this came out of the same hole. They all came out of the same hole, except that big fingertip. That's just laying there. And there's other fingers right near it too that are in other states of decomposition. Now, this is a left hand, and if you see yours has the same tendon that runs down there. And this again, these are all DNA tested. Everything I've shown you so far is DNA tested. And this is the pad that runs around your hand. This pad right here. You see it running down? You see the silver stuff? That's that grip skin again. You see it peeling right off? That's a very dense, heavy-duty skin. And that's on your feet, your hands, your fingers. This is the little cleave that goes right in between the two pads of your hand. The thumb runs off this side, and I actually have that. I have knuckles and all kinds of things from this particular hand. Again, DNA tested. And here is the DNA report. 7 years ago, all three of those things, the 36-inch tip, the lung, and the big hand, all were DNA tested and all came back positive for human DNA, and it was deeply extracted. I extracted it and sent it off the extractions. They tested them and they said they were dense and excellent quality. Excellent quality DNA sequences obtained to the 36-inch tip and the lung sample, and they came back Homo sapien D and B genes. Homo sapien, human. Now this was the mitochondrial DNA, so it doesn't say, you know, the male side. The way I understand it, this just proves that they were human. The blood was human. And it was literally raw blood that I sent them. So, and they can be retested. They're all here. Nothing's hidden. It's just that they won't allow me to bring this to Yale. This is the problem. I live very close to Yale, and I contacted them, and I did all kinds of stuff, and we even had a human head that we actually had CAT scan to try to present to them. And they still, no matter what we did, they would not allow us in the door into Yale. Derek Briggs was supposed to be the guy that was on top of this type of preservation that was complete preservation, but he's doing insects and bugs and, I don't know, leaves and silly things like that. I had the real goods. And he would not allow me to bring it down. He kept saying, no, all you have is rocks. They're just rocks. Now, anybody, backed up by DNA and CAT scans and specimens and literal blood from Yale University, not allowing it. And Harvard, the same thing, would not allow it. And Johns Hopkins, same thing. I even took a course at Johns Hopkins, and the professor shut me down in 8 minutes. Nope, just forget about it. Basically, very, very nasty responses from everybody. I was called a creationist, a Jesus freak, a Bible thumper. I said, this has nothing to do with that. It's nothing to do with that whatsoever. Flat earther, it went on and on and on. And then they just shut me right out of the system. And so that's why peer review does not work at all, because peers do not like to have anybody step into their arena. They will keep you out of their arena, and they will bully you, and that's what's been done to me. It was done to my hero, Velikovsky. I wrote a book called Minds in Collision, because their minds are colliding with reality. They can't accept it. And he wrote a book, Worlds in Collision, and that showed that the ancient texts of the things that I write about were accurate and true. And that just destroys these academics. And they will be destroyed, because this life ends. Something's going to happen to you in the next life. And everything that I have looked into tells me there will be something coming after this. And it's either good or it's terrible as hell. Okay, so I know they wouldn't publish about God. Well, what does God publish about them? 2 Peter 2:3. In their greed, these false teachers will exploit you with tales they have concocted. The long-standing verdict against them remains in force, and their destruction does not sleep. That's not good for the teachers. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. That's 3 John 1:4. Titus 1:16, they claim to know God, but by their actions they deny him. They are detestable, disobedient, and unfit for doing anything good. That's what God writes about the peer reviewers. Okay, not any reason to go much further. We're talking about academia and a peer review, and it really breaks down to, it looks to me like it's fraud. The selective suppression of unwanted or unacceptable results. Selective suppression. They won't allow it to be seen. They won't allow me to come through the doors with it. Of unwanted or unaccepted results. Peer review should be that let's take a look at what substantially exists to cover material evidence, not necessarily some hyperbole of, and that's what you get. That's why people won't review the papers. It's just all nonsense. They write volumes of nonsense. I write 2 or 3 paragraphs and then show the evidence. Still won't be allowed. It's time to change this whole situation instantly. Okay, I have gone through the ancient texts and found that the things that were written appear to be substantiated. Not only are they substantiated in the ancient myths about giant fish being attacked by Typhon, a dragon, which is this dragon right here, with his throat running all the way down. He runs all across North Africa, and it is fully written about. And this is the dragon, and you can come up here, and there's his dragon throat, and here's his dragon scaled tail, bleeding off in the desert, running out. You see those? Those are dragon scales. This is not just some mountain range. And this was written about exactly about what it was. Now don't forget, my evidence conclusions were in 6 of 2015. All right, so that is, what, 7 years ago. And it still won't be allowed to be seen because it's not accepted. And Velikovsky, who is my hero and wrote Worlds in Collision, is still regarded as a crazy person, even though everything he wrote, or not, maybe not everything, but a damn sure lot of it, is absolutely certain now. And it doesn't matter, he's still been put in that crazy mode. And that's what they're trying to do with me. I'm not going to allow it. He couldn't come up with enough evidence to support his factualness because he was taking ancient texts. They just don't allow that. They won't allow that. I'm taking ancient texts, but I'm showing the evidence that supports the ancient texts. Giants, dragons, everything supports it. Time for academia to do their job, because as far as I'm concerned, they owe the money back to the students. If they refuse to engage in reality, that's a fiduciary duty. They're supposed to act in the interest of the students ahead of their interest. Absolutely not happening. It's 100% their interest, and if the students won't say what they're told to say, they're threatened with being destroyed. They'll ruin their lives. They'll say, we're going to keep your money, and we're going to tell everybody you're an idiot. So what are you going to say? You want to fight? Not too many fight. All right, here's the problem. I'm showing dipole electron flood model replaces the standard model. This discussion on this paper has closed as of today. And I had 1 person comment, 17 people viewed it. Now, if I was in Harvard or Yale or something, there would be 5,000 comments here or whatever. There would be a bunch of people wanting to suck up to me so that they could say, oh, I read his paper, oh yeah, he's got all kind of photonic emissions of bosonic, fermionic, leptonic, it's unbelievable. So it's failed. It's just a bunch of bullies sticking together to force everybody else to kneel down to them. Well, it's ending now. It has ended because I've presented the evidence, and sooner or later it's going to be seen as fraud. I mean, it's fraud at this moment. It is. So sooner or later it's going to have to be addressed. Let's go with that.